This is an interview with Angela McConnell for the Youngstown Historical Center of Industry and Labor Oral History Project titled Women at Work. The interview is being conducted at the Steel Museum on March 10th, 2023. My name is Susan Lowry. Hi, Angela. Welcome.
Hi,
Thank you for being here. How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful.
Very good. Okay, I have some introduction questions I'd like to ask you first. Where did you and your family grow up?
We grew up in Kingston, Jamaica, where I was born and raised.
For how many years were you raised there?
Like in my late 20s.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And then what did your parents do for a living?
My mom stayed at home. She was a seamstress, so she would work out of the home. And my dad was an accountant, so he would be the one going out to work.
Okay. And where did you go to high school?
I went to high school in Jamaica. The name of the high school was Meadowbrook High School.
Okay. And what year did you graduate?
1988.
All right. And when you were in high school, did you have a job, like a part-time job like some students would?
No, not in high school, no.
Okay.
Well, I did have one summer job, but that was like short-lived.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was it?
I was working in a restaurant.
Okay. Very good. Are you currently married?
Yes.
Okay. And how many, do you have children? And if so, how many?
I have 2 biological children and 3 who my husband, my current marriage.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then let's see here. How about your education then? So you graduated from high school, and did you go to college right out of high school, or did you have a few years in between?
No, I actually went straight to work, living in Jamaica.
Okay. What was that?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
What was that job?
Oh, it was
sorry.
as a typist at the Central Post Office
Okay.
there in Jamaica.
All right. How long did you work there?
Not sure. Probably a year or so, and then I kept on going on to other jobs.
Yeah, just trying to get a feel of what you liked and stuff.
Yes.
All right. Well, then, now I'm curious. What brought you to the United States?
Well, my dad was here initially. During that time in high school, it was just me, my mom, my siblings at home, and he was here. And so he got amnesty or something. I'm not sure what that was. And so he petitioned for us to be in the United States. And I didn't go initially when my mom and sisters went because I was over the age of 21. So I had to stay back in Jamaica where I continued working before I actually came here.
Okay. And when you got here to the United States, is that when you got a higher, or did you go to college? I didn't even.
Not in Jamaica.
In the United States?
In the United States, yes, because the opportunity was more available here than there. Yeah.
All right. So yeah, let's talk about that then. Where did you go to school?
So I started out at a college or university, but it just didn't work out. So I, when I moved to Arizona from Florida, I started out at Western International University, where I got my associate. And because of knowing who I am, I like to continue moving and progress. So that wasn't enough for me. So I went on and I got my bachelor's in psychology at the University of Phoenix. That still wasn't enough for me. So I kept on moving on and I got my master's in psychology at University of Phoenix. Still wasn't enough for me. And so now I'm doing my doctorate, which of course I'm struggling with, but...
Is it also in psychology as well?
No, it's in organizational leadership with an emphasis on behavioral health. And that's at the Grand Canyon University.
Oh, that's the online one, right? The Grand Canyon?
Yes, but we still go in for like residency every year. But that's all past that stage.
Okay, and when you said organization leadership, and then you said what else?
With an emphasis on behavioral health.
In behavioral health. That is very interesting to me because, I've been kind of studying. We'll talk about that maybe even later off the record. And so I try to find the connections here. You had all that psychology courses. It kept on motivating you and driving you. what was that change between the master's and now working on your doctorate from psychology into that organization leadership?
Okay, so it's kind of a weird situation. My goal, and it still is to become a clinical psychologist.
Okay.
However, when I tried to start that process, it was a financial situation where I couldn't do it. So because I still wanted to get that doctorate degree under my belt as an accomplishment, that was just my go-to. I did start it out with organizational or psychology, industrial organizational psychologist, but the coursework wasn't what I really wanted, and the support wasn't really there for a doctoral level study, so I had to stop that. And so because that was what Grand Canyon had at the time that I really could do, and I did that. But I still believe I can still become a clinical psychology, and I did find a great program in Kent State University that I want to do, but I'm looking for a sponsor to do that, where I can give my 100% back to the community and offer free psychology services to Youngstown, because I know that it's like a lot of people who doesn't have a psychologist, but that's my goal. It's not the end. I'm still moving towards that. So that's what I want to do.
And that's what you should do. Exactly. In between you going to get your bachelor's, your master's, what kind of jobs did you hold?
So from Jamaica, while I was in Jamaica, I was still working as a secretary or administrative assistant, you guys call it here. And then coming here, my first job was at a call center, because that was like the most, available one that I can get off the bat. And then I move on into working for a man who does like fixing credit. But he wasn't the best of all person. He was very aggressive, and so from there, someone helped me to get another job at a realtor association as a receptionist. Then I got promoted to a member service coordinator. But then from there, I had moved. I was in Florida. Then I moved to Arizona, where my job was at the university. Apollo, and I was there for a while.
Was that more like receptionist, secretarial type stuff?
No, it was working with the students, student services and stuff like that. So,
which is a little up your because
it was.
You could help them and assist them as they go through.
Even though I still get cussed out on the phone from a few of them, but that's okay.
That happens.
Yeah.
We know. All right. Now, this gentleman that you worked for that was aggressive, how so? If you don't mind me asking.
Ask me anything. I'm open. I want to help, so I'm open to whatever the question is. But he was the sort of person that would be like this in your face, and he would shout at you. I remembered I met in an accident where a drunk driver ran into my car, and I had my son who was like 2 at the time in there. So we were in the hospital, and then I had severe back pain. So I was out of work for like 2 or 3 days. And he wasn't liking that, and he would curse me out, like, why you can't do that, even though I was in pain. And he was just shouting at me, and it was just bad, but I just took it. And then someone got me the job at the Realtor Association, and so it gave me great pleasure in telling him bye. And then I watched his facial expression was drained. But that's how his demeanor, that's how it has been with everybody, especially females, kind of like a that's what I was curious about. Is it sounds as though it wasn't the fact that you were a woman or that you were black or anything like that. It sounds like just that's how he is. No, it was a woman thing. That's just how he is with female. He doesn't talk to men that way. It's kind of I don't like labeling people, but
I know.
Yeah, it's
I
like
know what you mean.
Male chauvinist attitude, and that's how you treat all female. But that's okay. It's a learning process for me. So.
Yeah, that's true too. Okay, so let me see here. When you got done with your master's degree, what was your job after that?
So before, like after, while I was at working in the university, the department that I was working in, they they shut down.
Oh, okay.
At a specific location. So I was already traveling almost an hour and a half to get there, and then they moved even further away. So it would have taken me like probably 2 hours or so to get to work, 2 hours or so to get back. So I initially found another job at the county where I was working, but it wasn't really what I want. It was as a document processing person, and the supervisor I had there was very mean. I was the only black person in that department, and they had, because Arizona feels like a lot of Latinos, like Mexicans and stuff, and white. So there was like a mixture of Mexicans and whites in that department where I worked, but I was the only black person. But I noticed she would be more aggressive towards me, and an example of that where we had our annual evaluations, and I noticed she gave me, like it was 12 o'clock that day, and she said, here, review the evaluations for a 3 o'clock meeting with me. Then I asked my coworkers, when did they get there? They got it like 2 days prior. So I'm like, why did she give me mine like on the same day?
Yeah. And
I wasn't liking that. So of course I wasn't gonna sign stuff because there was stuff that she was saying on it that I wasn't in agreement with. And so I went to her manager, which was no better because he was not a good person either, and I think his trigger was on her and her pressure, and so it filtered down into us. So I went above him to the director, and that's where things got fixed, because the director was more open-minded, and he sees things from a more people person perspective than just himself. And so that's where he did fix that issue. I remember at a specific time I was in there working. She didn't want me to do overtime, and I was just finishing up some stuff, and she saw me, because it's like I wasn't invisible. It's like she had to walk to the door, and then she walked out the door and shut the light off on the inside there. And it was a whole bunch of stuff.
My goodness.
Yeah, and then eventually with all that was going on, I had my gallbladder taken out, and I was on leave for like 2 weeks. And so she was being very aggressive towards me for like doctor's note and so, which I had, but she wanted me to give it to her. I'm like, no, I can take this to HR myself. I don't need to give it to you. So she was kind of having like a weird attitude towards me. And then my son had to have surgery on his knee because he was playing soccer, and he ripped something in his knee. His leg was swollen, and my husband, because it's not his biological dad, could not sign off on anything, so I had to be there. And so she was giving me a fight, so you can't take time off for that. And my husband was like, you know what, you don't need that. It was just very an aggressive, hostile environment. And so it's like, might as well you just go home, just quit. And because that department, there were like over 100 people working in there, and it all came down to like 2, because everybody just left because of that manager. And so that kind of prompted me to go and finish my master's. So once I finished the master's degree, then I started looking into the behavioral health, where I got employed as a therapist or as a and that's
there in Arizona.
Yes, yes, and that's where the wheel turned, and it was very fulfilling, just working with these individuals and the children.
So you liked working at that job? You liked a lot.
The other one, yes, the one as a therapist, because I'm helping people. And I'm helping kiddos. So it's just different. It was very, I liked it. It was very fulfilling.
What made you leave that job?
I had to move here.
What happened when you moved here?
Well, yeah, because
I want to know about that. Like, what led you to Youngstown?
So because behavioral health field is very taxing in your mental health. You know, after a while, it takes a toll on your. So for better pay, I kept switching to. I ended up at this mental health hospital where it was great. That was the best job ever, but it was a night shift, and of course, I come across a lot of different people with alcohol and drug detoxing coming in at nights, and so. But it was fine. They needed help, but that was okay. But then I had to move here to Ohio because my husband is from Ohio, so he had to come back. And so I ended up here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you okay with living in
Yeah,
Youngstown?
I love it. There's so
Oh,
much
good.
opportunity here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was this time in my life where I wanted to move out, but then when I started to learn the history of Youngstown, I'm like, oh,
It's unique.
I really like it.
I love it, yeah.
So anyways, that was a sidebar there. Now the last job that you had, where was that? What was the job?
So all jobs I've had since
Yeah.
I moved here is in Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
And one of the reasons for that is, even though I have my degree in psychology, it's not a counseling degree. So I'm not licensed. I'm not a licensed therapist. But in Arizona and Pennsylvania, I can still do a therapeutic job without being licensed.
Fantastic.
So I was at a company there first working with children, but it wasn't really, it was a lot of driving, a lot of time on the road. And then just working with the family was very, and the pay wasn't that much. So I ended up going to this other job, which was, the pay was a little better.
Yeah.
But I was in the office Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I would go into the client. So for that last job that I had, I was a supervisor for the work, they call them the DSP, or residential counselors. We worked with people who are intellectually disabled. So what the company tried to do is to have these people have the experience of having their own environment, taking them out of the institution, like not to institutionalize them, and bring them into their own home.
Okay.
So because they can't live by themselves, they have staff that stays with them 24 hours.
Really?
So they have like blocks. So we have like one house would have 3 staff, not at the same time, but they're separate times.
Okay.
That
like their
would-
own personal chefs that they would have.
Everything. And it depends on the level of functionality for that person. If the person can't bathe themselves or can't feed themselves, the staff is there. Some client need 2 staff at all time. So instead of 3, we would have a house of 6.
Okay.
So we would supervise these individuals, just be there to help them and do
That
whatever
was
they need.
Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
No, through every time. But
Every time.
Tuesdays and Thursdays when we go into the office.
That's what I remember hearing you say. Okay.
Yeah, for meetings and just to
Okay.
catch up on things and see how things are going. But otherwise from that, we would normally go out to the homes and just to make sure that everything is in compliance. The staff need anything, we work with them. The client, sometimes they call us, they either complain on the staff or they need something, and we try to work with them.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why.
Okay. And so you just recently, though, left that job. Why is that?
Just drink to that one.
Okay.
So my coworkers, our ex-coworkers, as they would say, we were like this because we all were experiencing the immatureness of management. The management staff so in my department we had 2 managers and 1 director. One of the managers, she has her she's a behavioral specialist, so she understands people. So I noticed the majority of supervisors will go to her because they can understand her, and she understand, we understand each other. But she started out to be my manager, and we switched to the other manager, which was a younger person. And a lot of people said she's sociopathic because she has no empathy. Like you try to explain things and it's like you're talking to the bookshelf, nothing. That's just how she is. But I don't think she was a good fit for that department. Yeah. So she didn't really understand what was going on, or she wouldn't show any love or caring for the supervisors, the clients. She was more like a textbook person, like a robot.
I see.
And the director, who so happened to have a PhD, was just that book smart, but wasn't people person oriented.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a hard thing where you try to reach or connect with that person and there was nothing.
Yeah.
But what really drove me to leave, and the thing about it, and other supervisors had that issue, was because of the stress level of that job, I couldn't keep a good health. And other coworkers were sick too. Everybody was just sick all the time. Our immunity was so low, and I had to drive all the time to that location, which is part of the job, which I did agree to by signing up, and that's fine. But what really triggered it for me was when, after me coming back from being sick, I got a text from the director telling me to come in to catch up, which I found to be weird because she rarely talked to me. Like, whenever I reach out to her for anything, she would redirect me to my manager, who sometimes don't answer me, and I'm like, I need to get answers on how to do my job.
Right.
I can't and if I try to do it and make the decision on my own, then that come back to bite me in the butt.
Right.
And so I tried to avoid that. I was still new. I was still on probation. One other thing before I get to what she did that was really stressful too was they have this thing called on-call as supervisors, where you're on call for a week.
Okay.
And it's just right through until from I think Friday to Friday the next week.
Okay.
And you only get $100 for that, which I think was very bad, that one thing.
Okay.
But what my understanding of being on call is I have to be there more than 6 months. So I was put on call before I even finished my 3rd month.
Oh.
They throw me in on call. There was one of the client that was acting up. The client, she had whatever disease and she bit her nail and she spit it in her caregiver's face. And while she was driving on the highway, they got in an altercation, almost crashed the car, and the worker was like, I can't do this. So the police was called. The client got arrested. The client was young, in her 20s.
Yeah.
And she got arrested and she was at the hospital. So they sent me, because the supervisor for that house, the director said, well, you need to go and get her from the hospital. And nobody wanted her in their car because of what she did.
Yeah.
And the director was, well, I'm going to write you up and take you to HR. The girl is like, I'm not doing it. So because I was so put on call, and my coworkers were so upset that I was like, Angela just started. Why did she go on call? That was too, and they were like, what's going on? So I had to go there in the cold at the client's apartment to wait for her, because they decided instead of picking her up from the hospital, the ambulance would take her home. Okay. I went there at 7 in the evening, and she didn't get there until almost 11 that night. So I was sitting in my car the whole time waiting on her, which was fine.
I know.
That's okay. And then when she came, she was just coughing and throwing up. So I'm like, I don't want her to, I forget what they call it. When you act, there's a name for it. I'm sorry, I can't remember right now. But I just didn't want her to choke and die. So I called 911. Yes, yes. So I called 911. They came and they got her, and I drove behind the ambulance back to another hospital with her. And I don't know what's going on. They had her on the observation there. Yeah. While I was there, that was 1 in the morning now. Yeah. I started feeling not right. So I said to the doctor, can you check my temperature, my blood pressure for me? And my blood pressure was 199 or 200 over 199. Oh. It was up there. And I'm like, I can't do this. So I called the director who was supposedly being called. And she was like, oh, I don't want to leave. I don't want to leave my house right now. And so she ended up calling another guy who was the overnight on-call person. And they finally got a worker, to come and relieve me so I could go home.
Yeah.
Now, I couldn't drive home because it was all the way in PA. It was an hour and a half to get there. I was so weak. I was trembling. And I'm like, I'm not going to put my life in danger. I could really make it to a hotel. And I found a hotel and stayed for like 4 hours just to sleep so I could feel better to go home.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is just not me.
Wow.
But anyway, back to the situation where she said to come into the office to catch up. And I just didn't feel right doing that. And, you know, I had a conversation with my husband. I had like a breakdown that time. I'm like, I can't do this. I was like crying. I'm like, you gotta help me. I can't. This is too much.
Yeah.
And my husband was like, well, just quit the job. And so I was still like hanging on in there. And then eventually I did quit. And that's why, because all of my jobs that I've had, I always give notice. I always give 2 weeks notice, but I just couldn't do it with this job anymore.
Yeah.
But in the night, my coworkers were just calling me. Even one of the managers said, "You're a breath of fresh air in this department." And everybody was like, "Angela, what happened?" And one of one of my coworker who was close to the director said, "You know what they were going to do with you, Angela?" So, a week ago, one of the houses, 3 of the staff they wouldn't clock out. It's like they were stealing time, so to speak.
Dear. Yeah.
So the director said to me, well, you got to suspend them, which is a problem because you have to find people to fill the spots.
Right.
And so I am like, okay, she said to suspend them. And she said it in a conference room with everybody in there. And she was like, just suspend them, blah, blah, blah. And she was just, you know. So I'm like, okay. So I had to call them, which hurt me to do that. It's just, and tell all 3 of them that they're suspended because of that. And somehow HR got a hold of it. And HR told her, that was not right. You should not have suspended them. But because she didn't want to take the blame, I was a scapegoat. So I was supposedly to be called into the office so that I could get written up to take the blame
For something you were told to do.
And I was still new. I was still learning.
Unbelievable.
And so I'm like, wow. And to think that I had a respect for this woman. And so that was it.
Yeah.
But otherwise from that, I had the coworker. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
Just being in our conference room with all of us together. We would work together. We help each other. We would laugh. We have fun. That was I love that. And everybody I see, like people who they didn't like, I would say hi to them. There was an IT guy there that nobody liked. And somehow I just acknowledge him and say hi. And he was like, yeah, I know no one likes me. I'm like, it's okay. And I would say hi to them. But that's what I do. And everybody was, even the trainers was like, Angela, you're leaving? I'm leaving too. And one of the trainers like, I will give you a recommendation. I will do that for you.
Oh, nice.
So it is kind of a bittersweet situation, but I just think it was just very traumatic for me.
Yeah. It sounds like it, and that's just knowing how it hit you mentally, and that you knew you just had to take care of you, and you did something about it. Any kind of regrets for that at all?
For that happening?
Well, either for that happening, but I was more or less thinking regrets having to leave in that way. Well,
yeah, because again, I'm not the sort of person that leave a job without notification. But because of my mental health was going down and my physical health, and that's what I put in my resignation letter. And I did speak to the HR person after, and he's like, Angela, I get it.
Okay, good.
Because I wasn't even the first one. The turnover was so high at that company. They hire people and with 2 days, they're gone.
Yeah. And that's really sad for a company like that when you're trying to help individuals who are having challenges in and of themselves because of their behaviors and stuff.
Right.
They need somebody who would empathize with them and be there for them.
Right.
But you have to all work as a team. Everyone has to.
I agree.
And if there's that one little wrench that's putting that wrench into it doesn't make it work.
Because if I'm not there for my staff, how can my staff help the clients?
Yeah.
You know, and it's just a lot of, now the managers I hear they're leaving to their, because they've gotten reprimanded so many times that it's a sad situation.
The one other, the young person that you said that she kind of came across like she had no empathy.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that caught my attention was the fact that she was young. Do you think that it's possible that she came across as empathetic because she didn't have the experience as maybe say somebody who has been in the workforce a little bit longer than her?
That could be a possibility because I hear that was her first job ever.
Oh,
so
okay.
and I think she had a God complex where what I say go, and that was her attitude. Well, this is what you need to do. Go there and sit. Like licensure days when we were getting ready for licensure, she sent me out to this doctor's office. From 9 a.m. in the morning. I had to stay there till 1 o'clock, waiting until the doctor gets a chance to fill out the paperwork. You can't come back until you fill it out. And it's just, that kind of, you don't treat people that way.
Yeah.
We should all be servant leaders,
Yeah.
not that dictatorship. That's Hitler. It's all gone. And that was what I know as management. You want someone to work with you and be with you. You don't dictate to people. We're all adults.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And then now, what are you doing? You left that most recent job.
Yes.
To do now.
So from that, it kind of gave me, like, I don't think I like the idea, and I think that's how God has created me as a leader from the first day of I'm aware of myself. I would be like taking my siblings and my cousins around. My mom was like, "Yep, you're a ringleader." Because like I have this leadership potential inside of me, and so my husband always tell me that you can do mental health coaching, you can do coaching. Why don't you look into it? Okay. And so I just I have the background knowledge of therapy, but I can't really say it's therapeutic because I'm not licensed. But I know there are people out there who are not like in a severe stage of like a clinical depression or a clinical anything that has to do with medication or have to deal with a psychologist. I can't do that because it's not in my scope. But for everyday people that have little challenges like anxiety, depression, how do you deal with it? So from a wellness perspective, that's who I work with.
Okay.
And with children, especially working with little children to help them to tell the difference between why do I get angry? How am I feeling? What am I feeling when I know I'm going to get angry? I feel something in my stomach. Do I feel my jaws clenching? How do I differentiate and what do I do to de-escalate that feeling? So that's what I want to start reaching out into the schools, and I've been like talking with a few organizational leaders to get involved with the young ones to help them with like workshops and stuff like that.
Oh, that would be a great idea.
Yeah.
And so you're currently trying to go for your doctorate though, so that way now will these be a degree plus some certificates to go behind it as well? Fantastic. So you're hoping to build this business from scratch. Where are you at in the process of that?
So I've completed all the registration that I need. I have two parts of the business. I have the for-profit side and I have the non-profit side. The for-profit side is working with the school and whatever grants they get, that's how I would get paid. The non-profit side is where I want to go into the community and have workshop with older people, with adults, like help them to understand like grief, the 5 stages of grief, and grieving doesn't mean losing somebody. It could mean losing a job, losing a friend. How do you deal with that? Because we all go through that every day. Exactly. And how to eliminate the high rate of suicide. There's a lot of people, like especially with COVID, what happened, and it's like I can't do this anymore. Show them that there's an alternative. Yeah. So the workshop will help, and that's for the nonprofit side of it that I'm working on, and to build from there, and to help even in the school. I remember I did a program back in Arizona where I work with kids from ages 12 or 13 to like 18 and help them with their self-esteem. And then at the end of that, I did a fashion show. And there was one particular girl that stood out to me during that time. She normally would wear her hair back, and she would like hold her head down like this. And she just wasn't like that person who would be like, you know, proud of herself. She would like, I guess, had low self-esteem. And I remember just doing the fashion show with them. Like days after, when I saw her hair was out. She just, it was like a different person.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And for me, I'm like, wow, I like that, because there are people just. It's not necessarily being skinny and walking on a runway. Is, you know, you have different type of people, and that's what I want to show the world, or show these kids that it's okay who you are. If you're in a wheelchair, put on your glam and wheel your way down the runway. You know, just let them be themselves. So that's my goal as well, to do that.
That sounds wonderful. I love it. Okay, so how about, you know, with your husband and your children, especially when I think you had to drive 1 hour or so to work and then 1 hour back. And when you think about how much time that takes, and then, you know, some of the stuff that you had to go through with work, and you would come home wanting to relax. But then, so basically what I'm trying to ask though is, how were you able to juggle all that time away from home and then come home and try to manage your home life as well? How challenging was that? Is there moments where it was very overwhelming, even with your husband or with your children? How did that all work?
So thank God my husband is a very supportive husband. This husband that I have is very supportive. He understands. He works with me, and he's very independent.
Okay.
So the majority of times he does stuff by himself. My kids are older, even though they have, well, my daughter have children of her own, so my grandkids.
Oh, so you do have grandchildren.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't look like a grandma, so I didn't want to go there, but this is wonderful.
No, you're fine. But yeah, but you know, during the week is when, like, and they do understand and know that I'm busy. So on the weekends is when I try to, like, either have a date night with my husband or try to be there for them, try to get stuff done in the house. But it still wasn't enough as is now, where I have more time, where I can schedule my time for like the business and my time with them.
I see. So when they were younger though, was it overly challenging trying to juggle everything?
When they were younger, it was kind of different. Like before I met my current husband, like with my kids specifically, it was very challenging because I had to find daycare for them. And I had to, there was really nobody to help. You know, but I made it through.
That's all that matters. And they still love you. That's good. Very good. All right. And then let me see. Okay, that doesn't apply. That doesn't apply. Okay, final question I have. That could, you know, spawn other questions though, but is there anything else that you would like to add about your working life, about your experiences? Something that maybe I forgot to ask or didn't think to ask or something like that? We want this kind of open-ended question because we don't want to miss anything that's really pertinent. Right. So as we have talked over the last several minutes and stuff, did something pop up in your head that you're like, ooh, I want to touch on that?
Sexual harassment.
Oh, please, yes.
Yeah, that was one of the things.
That's interesting.
I remember I told you of my summer job in high school.
Yes.
So that was like my first sexual harassment situation.
Really?
But
now this is in Jamaica.
Yeah. Oh. So, okay, because I'm the sort of person where my daughter would say I'm aggressive, but I have a fighting spirit where I don't want to say it on camera, but I don't take, you know what, from people, right? So. Let
me tell you what. It's really fun because the transcripts, you know, sometimes they'll come up with like little stars and it's cuss words. Yeah.
No, I wasn't gonna curse. But,
okay.
But it's you know, crap. I don't take crap from people. But anyway, I remembered, so it was because we normally get like 2 months of holiday in Jamaica, and my best friend and I, who are still best friends to this day, she's still in Jamaica. I know, we're doing our business together too.
Okay.
But so we had 2 months of which to do the summer job.
Okay.
We went and we asked, like, well, we can only hire one because we only have a position for one. So we decided, okay, since we both need the money, let her do 1 month and I'll do the next month.
Oh, okay.
So they agreed to that. So they hired, so she did her first month, then it was my month to do my part.
Okay.
So I think it was like a week into it. We normally would go in to the restaurant and, prepare, get the knives and fork, wrap them, make sure that it's all ready for lunch and stuff like that. So I was in the back room with the chef.
Okay.
I was sitting on the counter, cutting the paper towels or the napkins, wrapping the knives and fork together, and he came over and started rubbing my legs. And I looked at him and was like, please stop. He's like, no, but you're so nice. And I'm like, please stop.
Oh, wow.
And he continued. And this may sound aggressive and how should I say? This may sound weird, graphic,
okay,
bad.
Okay.
But
it's up to you.
I had a knife in my hand.
Okay.
I didn't mean to hurt him or anything. And I went like this, please stop. And I swung the knife. So his hand was in the way because he was touching me, and it caught him and tickled a piece of his finger. He had to get stitches. But the restaurant, and because he was a head chef at that time, I mean, I felt bad, but I think he deserved it because I told him to stop like 3 times, and he still do it. And then there was like stuff happening in the restaurant, so the restaurant ended up closing down, I guess, for good.
Oh, you mean like how soon after that did they close down?
Probably a week or so, because he was a head chef, and I don't know. But there was like sewer was coming up and a whole bunch of stuff.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't get to work my full month, unfortunately. But that's okay. It's a learning process. And then here in the United States, right at the Realtor Association, there was this guy. I don't know what his position was there, but he was, in my opinion, a nuisance. Mm-hmm. And apparently, after I left, I realized what his goal was. So when I start first working there, and I'm just trying to be nice with people, give them the benefits of the doubt.
Yeah.
He took me to this fine restaurant. It's like, hey, let's go to lunch. I'm like, okay, sure, not a problem. Went to lunch with him, and I guess he wanted to, get in bed with me or whatever. Okay. But I know how I am, and I respect myself. And sorry, I'm not going to give myself to anybody like that.
Yeah.
I'll fight to the T before you get to that point with me, because that's just who my parents grew me up as. Yeah. We grew up in a home where my mom would shelter us. We didn't go on sleepovers. So the elimination of molestation was never there.
I see.
Because my mom, she's like a hawk. And it was 3 girls that she had.
Okay.
And so she didn't want any of us to get molested or raped.
Wow.
So the cousins would come over to our house and we all would have. So that was it. So I didn't have that mentality where someone would, mess with me. But anyway, this guy keep coming at me and coming at me and coming at me to, to go out. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. And then he started to get very aggressive towards me. I was sitting out at the front as a receptionist. So he would go with like the can of Pledge furniture spray and say, this is you, this is him, spraying it on me and then wiping it like he's acting. Yeah, wait, it got better. Oh. And then I would be outside coming in, and then he would tell me, oh, I bet you have a penis between your legs because you don't want to show me your stuff, you're a man. And I'm like,
you serious?
And I'm like, you can think all what you want, sorry, but I'm not gonna.
Oh my God.
I'm not gonna. Yeah. So wait, and then in the end, he, like the last attempt, he took me to this little rundown Chinese restaurant around the road, and he still didn't get anything. And I'm like, take me to all the restaurants you want, but you're not gonna, and if you touch me, that's a different situation. And that's one of the reasons why I went and I do martial art training too. Ooh. So yeah, that's where I met the kid's dad.
I see.
But anyway, after I left, I heard one of the other female coworker reported him to the authority for sexual harassment. Every single female in that building, I think he either did something with them or he tried to. I remember one of his friends tried to give me a drink Like it was like three of us sitting at this workplace function that we had, and the friend just came and say, "Hey, Angela, I got a drink for you."
Oh,
someone is giving
red flag.
Wait, and then I said to myself, "Oh, so what about my coworker?" I said, "No, you're special. Here you go." But because of how I was trained, and even as a martial artist, in my head I'm thinking, "You think I'm stupid?" So I held the drink and oh, thank you. And then in the end, I went into the bathroom and I down the drain. It's an open drink in a cup. What do you think? I was going to drink that?
Right.
So yeah. But anyway, he ended up getting arrested and charged with sexual harassment and drugs. They was actually selling drugs in the workplace.
Oh, my man.
So that was basically my, like workplace sexual harassment situation, because I don't put myself in a situation for a person. If I notice that they're going into that, even as a married woman, try to tell me stuff or get me, I'm like, I'm going to cut you off and move on.
Okay.
And I don't put myself in a situation where I'm by myself with anybody in an office or go anywhere where I feel unsafe.
Do you think that a lot of women, maybe that it's just that they're overly gullible and they don't think it's going to happen to them, and that's why they get into those kind of situations?
I think for most women, it's just a lack of knowledge.
Ah, that too. Okay.
Because I was watching a documentary where a young woman came in from China to a university here in the United States. And a guy stopped the car and she got in the car. And that was it.
I see.
She ended up dying, So it's about not knowing. And that's one of the things that I would like to dedicate myself to for women. Not only women, men, young boys.
That's true too.
Don't take gifts from people.
Right.
Don't
put yourself.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
They may, and this is where discernment comes in. A lot of people, especially if they're not being treated well at home, and then this nice person came up and started treating, because you have a lot of wolves out there in sheep clothing, and they'll come across as nice, and because you're so like, oh my goodness, my boyfriend or whoever is not treating me, or my mom don't like me, oh, this guy's nice, oh, he's nice, he buy me stuff. Yeah. But it's kind of like a fish line, like, ooh. Yeah. So awareness. Yeah. That's what I want to create.
It sounds a lot like how your mother was. How your mom protected you. Now you're just transitioning and giving that out to others.
I do that to my kids too. My daughter, my son, like my daughter didn't have sleepovers. And that's why it's like somebody I know at that house who didn't really have an uncle that would pop up in the middle of the night, and you're in the couch sleeping, and uncle get all adventurous or stuff like that. So it's about being aware. It's about knowing. And unfortunately, not a lot of women or young women were taught about this. We're taught not to, if you go to a bar, and sometimes the bartenders are in it too,
Yeah.
Don't take drink. Or I've seen even to this day, people just have like if I have this bottle of water and I walk away, I'm not going to drink it anymore. I'm not saying I don't trust you. It's just me. It's how I am.
Right.
But they would walk away and leave their drink open, and they go dance, and then they come back and they drink. And you don't know what happened between the time frame that you left your drink there.
3-4 minutes.
And go. And it's just a lot. It's just a sad world. And it's just awareness.
Yeah. But that's why it's going to be great to have somebody like you in this community to help individuals like that.
Right.
Even me, I could learn a lot from you for sure. But anyway, that is all of my questions then. And if you're satisfied with everything, perfect, awesome. And I thank you so much.
You're welcome.
For being here with us today and sharing.